Have you heard that on Zoom yet?
Mm-mm.
It's so creepy.
I know. I'm like, okay.
So what I talk about like every week is a lot like our thoughts and beliefs create the results in our life, right? And so when we have kind of this, like, if we don't know how to manage our brains, then our brains make up the rules. And our brain changes the rules every day, right? So first I wanted to define like what is legit, because the title of this one is how to feel like a legit CrossFit athlete and an athlete, even though you can't lift heavy or RX WODs, right? Because that's where a lot of us get stuck is like we look around and like, if I can't deadlift 300 pounds, if I can't back squat 200, I can't do Fran in less than 4, like then I'm not really legit. Am I speaking your language?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just was like, okay, well, what does legit even mean? So I looked it up, and it's the definition is allowed by the rules. Okay. So to be legit, it has to be allowed by the rules. Well, what are the rules of CrossFit? For as long as I've been in CrossFit, since 2012, all my certifications, all of my journey, the rules of CrossFit have always been that it has to be constantly varied, high intensity, functional movement with an increased work capacity across a broad time and modal domains. That is CrossFit's rules, right? That's been its like mission statement, if you will, since way early 2000s. So if that's the rules and being legit is allowed by the rules, then we have to ask ourselves, well, what is constantly varied? I'm going to assume that you guys do a different workout every day. I know you do, because I do the same programming as you, right? So, okay, you and I both check that we followed that rule. We do a constantly varied workout every day. Do you get your heart rate up from sitting at your desk and while you're in the gym? Yes. So we're doing high intensity. My heart rate is up. That's what high intensity is. My heart rate's up, elevated. Do you do functional movement? Do you do movements that help you sit on the toilet, that help you pick things up?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know you do, right? Can you walk up a hill or stairs now through increased work capacity and not breathe, not be out of shape? Yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Across a broad time, modal domains just means that you and I, because I know our programming, we can do very short WODs, and then we have big chippers, and then we have Murph coming up, right? And you and I are capable of doing these different time spans. Those are the rules of CrossFit. So therefore, we are legit. We are a legit CrossFitter because we are playing by the rules that CrossFit has laid out for us. And our brains want to skim over this, be like, yeah, that's like, constantly varied, broad spectrum, whatever. Yeah, but Randall, you know who Randall is.
Yeah.
Right? Randall can do all these things much better than me, so she's a legit CrossFitter. Nope. Randall has increased her skill set and efficiency. That's it. That's the difference between Randall and you and I. That's it. Okay. So why does our brains, like if we play by these rules, these definitions, then we are CrossFitters. If we do these things, we are CrossFitters. Where we get into the problems is vagueness. Our vagueness in our brain is a playground to find ammunition. So whenever we have a belief, how about I'm not enough, I'm not worthy. Most of us have that because we have human brains, right? So our brain then says, okay, we have this belief, I'm not enough, not worthy. I'm going to go find evidence to prove it's true. So when you show up, you're doing a workout, you get on sugar WOD, you see all these other scores. What you're really doing is your brain's looking for evidence to show you I'm not enough and I'm not worthy. See, I'm not a legit CrossFitter. These people, Emily has a higher score than me, right? And it's not like our brains aren't trying to be mean to us. The problem is that the brain does not want to be wrong. It has belief systems that most of us created in child development, so from 0 to 7. It's where our beliefs were laid down. And then as we age, we just kind of stay in those belief systems and gain more and more evidence. So I'm 40 now. So I've spent decades gaining evidence that I'm not enough. I'm not worthy, right? We start CrossFit, we're super excited. It's so fun. And then we move into this place where like, we feel like we should be further along. We feel like we should be doing better. We should be lifting more, PRing more. And then our brain's like, see, you're not enough. You don't have what it takes. You're not legit, right? And that's just because you have a belief system that says, I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. And have you ever played a board game with someone, like, you know the rules, and they're like, well, these are the rules I play by? Have you ever done that? It drives you crazy, or it drives me crazy. I'm like, no, Cards Against Humanity says you have to win 10 black cards to win. And you're like, no, three's the rules. It's like, no, it's not. This is the rules. That's what vagueness does to our brain. It just makes up new rules every day, and it makes up the rules to make sure it validates a belief system that's already lying in there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why it's so much easier for our brain if we just lay it out and like define it. Okay, what is legit? What is the definition of legit? What is the definition of a CrossFitter? What is the definition of an athlete? And I looked it up. An athlete is one who participates in physical exercise or sports, especially in competitive events. Again, one who participates in physical exercise or sports, especially in competitive events. We participate in physical exercise, right?
Yeah.
And even if you do competitions, it's like the beast of CrossFit is competitive, right? So then we're athletes. So then that gives something for our brain to actually like truth, if you will, for it to butt up against. When it says you're not an athlete, it's like, wait, the definition of an athlete is this. That's not true. You offering me up that I'm not an athlete or I'm not enough or I'm not a CrossFitter, like it's going in direct it's direct opposition to facts, because the brain just makes up its own facts. Like, well, no, you have to be like Randall to be an athlete. Well, that's not true. Like, there's millions of athletes in the world that are not built and can't do the things that Randall does, but are even more successful. So,
yeah.
Yeah, let's see. So comparison is the biggest one that our brain loves to use in CrossFit to make sure that it finds the beliefs that it needs, that we're not enough, we're not worthy, we're not an athlete, we're not a CrossFitter. And it's really not fair. It's not fair to you to go in there, right? And you're doing your back squat and you're feeling really good about it, I'm sure. And you're like, yeah, this is like a little bit heavier than my normal. Like, I feel good about this. And your brain will literally slam on the brakes and be like, oh no, our belief system says that we are not enough. And you're going to look over here and you're going to see another girl that's doing 20 pounds heavier than you. And then you're going to immediately go back into, see, this isn't good enough. Isn't it amazing how the brain does that?
Yeah.
So fast. So fast. But why I tell you guys that it's not fair to you, because you and I are kind of seasoned athletes. We've been doing this for a while, and we've been doing CODIS programming, which, by the way, I've done CrossFit all over the place and even owned my own box. I've never done this hard of programming. But for the new people, like 5 reps, like let's say a new girl comes in and she's only done back squat 5 times. She has 5 reps underneath her. How many reps of back squat do you think you have underneath you by now?
Oh gosh. Hundreds. I mean, yeah, hundreds. Maybe thousands. I don't know.
Yeah. So when we compare ourselves, it's completely unfair, because you're comparing your 500 reps to her 5, or your 500 reps to Randall's 1200. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever read Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers.
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's so good. So he does research on extremely successful people like Steve Jobs.
Okay.
You figured out what is required to be an expert or something, and you need 10,000 hours.
Okay.
So if you're comparing your 2,000 hours to someone else's 8,000 hours, it's not fair to you. They have more reps underneath you, right? And it's also not fair to that person. So one time on my personal Facebook page, I posted about how a lot of my business partner's a physician, how a lot of aging things that we're taught are myths, like that we have to have gray hair or that we have to gain weight, right? And like these are a lot of myths. And that how at 40, like I still wear the same size I did in high school. I am in better shape than I was in high school, and I get to do all these things. And this lady posted, she replied to me, "I'm glad that you could be so lucky. Not all of us get to have that privilege or that luckiness." And she's my age, right? And so I was like, okay, all right, I see you, but you're disrespecting the fact that I have been working out and eating healthy since I was 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
How many hours? I've put 6-7 figure of hours in the gym to get this. I didn't just wake up and be like, oh, I'm 40 and like completely healthy.
Yeah.
And so that's where that comparison is like, it's not fair to me. It's not fair to you to compare, because you're disrespecting their work and their reps, and you're disrespecting your work and your reps. So that's just evidence for you, like as your brain wants to start comparing. You can be like, oh, this isn't fair to me, and this isn't fair to them. Like, do they have more reps than me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got through this really fast. What does this make sense? Like, tell me what your brain's saying. What is it like? What? Yeah.
I don't struggle with that as much now. Like I did at the very beginning when I first started CrossFit, and I could see these girls doing pull-ups and the heavy squats and all the movements. And I was nowhere near being able to do any of it. And it does frustrate you because you're like, I want to be able to do that, but I can't. But then I had to like eventually realize what you're saying is like, they've been doing this for years. I just walked in here. Like, there is no way that I'm going to, like, maybe 3 years from now, I'll be where they are today, you know? And so just realizing that it does take patience and time and like effort. And so, like, you're not going to be there. And so that was fine. I think now what I struggle with, like you said, maybe feeling like you should be further along, or like, but that's just the result of my own effort. Or like sometimes I'm like, okay, how do I get to the point where like, when am I going to be able to lift heavier? Like, should I be going heavier now? Like, I don't know when I'll be there, or like what I should be doing to get there, you know, like.
Yeah. And isn't this really
Which is,
interesting? So if you go back to me talking about vagueness being the playground of the mind,
yeah.
where is there?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think like setting a goal, like what is the goal? Like, what do I want to back squat? Or, you know, what do I want to do? Like, I think that's right. I think I need to define like what that looks like individually for individual goals that I'm trying to reach. Cause I just feel like it should be further along, but further along than what? Like,
Right.
I can squat a lot more today than I could 3 years ago, you know, and
Right.
surely even if I measured, if I looked at a graph or a chart of my reps or my weight, I'm sure hopefully like 2 years from now, I'm sure I'd be squatting more than I am today, you know. But if I don't define like what I'm shooting for, aiming for, then it is like, it's just vague. It's like, oh, I feel like it should be more, you know, or better than what it is.
Yeah. And it's like, well, what is better? What is more?
Yeah.
It's like, I love this thing. Like, if you don't, one of my coaches gave to me, if you don't get very clear with these things, then you're always in failure. you're always failing because you're never there. And there constantly moves because it hasn't ever been defined.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes too, like I might not be able to do like exactly what I want. Like it might be like if I'm working on double unders, right? And so I can't do the workout like RX with whatever, however many double unders they're doing. And I can do a couple maybe, but I think too, like telling myself that like just because I can't do the workout the way it is now, like it doesn't necessarily mean like I failed, like just the fact that like I'm trying or I'm making an effort to try is better, because sometimes it just depends on the day and like what my brain tells me. Sometimes I'm like, no, I can't do double unders. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to do double singles or whatever. Like, I'm just not even going to go there. Whereas like sometimes I'm like, okay, I can't do double unders or I can't do that many double unders, but I'm going to try. And even if I get half of the number of double unders, whatever, like it's more than I would have done had I just not even tried at all. So it's still a win, even though it's not where I want to be. It's like, okay, at least I tried and I pushed myself to keep working on them versus just being like, no, I can't do it. I'm not going to do it.
Right. So my question for you then is like, why, we're going to get into your brain. What is your brain trying to achieve by RXing the WOD?
That's a good point. I think it goes back to comparison. You want to tell yourself like, I'm good enough to do this WOD RX.
Okay. All right.
I think.
Okay. We'll pretend. Okay. So we have whatever WOD you're thinking about with the double unders in it, right? So let's pretend that you do it and you RX the double unders and you RX the WOD. Okay. Do you think that your brain will be like, I did it. I'm so happy?
Maybe. I don't know.
You know what your brain is really going to offer you up. Like, what is going to be your next? Like, you're going to put it in sugar WOD that you are. What's the next thing for the brain?
It probably wasn't as fast as somebody else. Yeah. So this used to be my struggle because I like to be really fast and I'm very competitive, like on sugar WOD. My friends and the people at the gym, they'll make fun of me because I track everything in sugar WOD, like very specific, everything. And so I've always been scaled, always. Like I've very rarely can I do a workout RX, like very rarely.
You have the hardest programming in the country.
So I know that, and it's fine. And I'm fine being a scaled athlete. I don't care. But I want to be fast. Like if I'm scaling, like I want to be fast. I want to be on the top of the leaderboard. And I think it was a struggle for me too, to even say like, I want to transition into some of these RX movements because I want to get better. I want to get stronger. I want to improve. But that means my time is going to slow down. And so that it was a big struggle for me to like transition to some of the harder movements. I'm like, yeah, well, but if I do the harder modification, it's going to take me longer. And then my score is not going to be as good on sugar WOD. And it's like, well, what does the score on sugar WOD matter? Like, does that matter? Or does the fact that I can do this movement, so I had to really like let go of some of those things and just be like, okay, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, even though I think my brain and I really like the competitiveness of it, or like just feeling like, and not even with other people, although other people do encourage me and like push me to be better. But I like to see even myself, like, what was my Murph time last year and what's my Murph time this year? Like, did I get better?
So tell me more about that. Like, let's say that your Murph time this year is 2 minutes slower than Murph time last year. What is your brain going to offer up to you?
It was 12 minutes slower.
Oh, you've already done it.
Yeah, I did it early because I'm going out of town this weekend.
Okay. So what did your brain offer up?
It felt really bad. Like for a second, it feels like failure. But I will tell you, this is the first time ever that I've done Murph where I was actually able to do actual pull-ups. And I did like RX push-ups. Like I didn't wear a vest, but I mean, never have I ever before this year, I couldn't even do a single pull-up. Like pull-ups is something I've been working on, for 3 years. And like I did 100 pull-ups. Like
Mhm.
I actually did legit, like real pull-ups. And so that was the thing. It's like I have to focus on the win, but I think mentally is like, oh, 52 minutes. Like that was so much slower than last year, like why couldn't I go faster? Or like
Making it mean about you.
what it means about me.
We're attaching meaning to it. What is the meaning attached to it about you and who you are?
Not good enough, I think. That's all it always comes back to that,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
And your brain like totally was like, see, you're not good enough. And totally like didn't, because it has a cognitive bias, right? Cognitive bias is it will only see and compute things that align with what it believes. If it does not believe it, it won't even see it.
Yeah.
And you see how your brain was like, and I cuss, so I apologize if you're like, I don't like cussing, tell me.
It's okay.
Your brain is like, fuck that shit. Yeah, I did 100 pull-ups. Don't matter. We're focusing on the fact that I did it 12 minutes slower.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard of John Acuff?
I haven't.
So he's just a writer and he had a new book this year. It's called Soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like exactly what you're saying, how the brain is going to default to the soundtrack that it knows, that it's known for years because that's what it knows, and so you're used to those thought patterns. And so it's like, that's the first thing that's going to come to mind, even when there is, you could be focusing on something else, but your brain is automatically going to go to that. Or even what you were saying about like finding the evidence to support what you just said, and he was talking about how like when we want to flip the soundtrack, you have to say something different, but then you have to try to find the evidence to support the positive things.
Right.
Otherwise, like your brain's not going to believe it, right? It's like, oh no, that's not true.
Right.
So you have to like actually back it up with evidence, and you have to try to like find that evidence. Yeah. So then I had to, my husband's like, oh, you did really good, whatever. And then I'm like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I did 100 pull-ups. Like I did 100 pull-ups. I've never done pull-ups, and I have to like go back and like tell my brain that like, you did this, it was good, you couldn't do this, or, just to like.
So I'm gonna take his stuff and I'm gonna dive a little bit deeper with it, because it kind of goes into like positive affirmations. Like I'm not a fan of positive affirmations, because if you have a belief and you're giving it the opposite with a positive affirmation, your brain's saying this is a lie. Like you're literally telling me lies with this positive affirmation, right? Yeah. And it's a waste of time. So what we have to do is, they're called neurological pathways. So it's very grooved, like the brain is all about efficiency. It wants to conserve as much energy as possible. So thoughts that we've thought thousands of times create well-grooved neurological pathways. They're very easy to access, right? That not enough stuff. So it's like I-35, smooth and easy, right? So if we want to build a new road, we have to dismantle I-35 and find evidence why it's not true. And once the brain finds evidence to prove that this belief is no longer true, it'll let it go. And it'll allow you to go to work to build a new neurological pathway. It takes a lot of work, and the brain doesn't like that, because you're out there with a machete hacking down trees, right, to build this path, to build this road, and it takes work. But the best way to do it is dismantle this, we call it a thought bridge. So here's where your belief is, here's where you want to be. And so you start making bridging thoughts to get there and tell this belief. And in the middle of it, from this belief to here, is called cognitive dissonance. And it's miserable, because the brain's like, well, I believe I'm not enough. I did 100 pull-ups. Like this evidence isn't measuring up.
Yeah.
So the way I kind of brain hack it myself is like, okay, fine. You're not happy with my Murph and I did 100 pull-ups. Okay, fine. What if I did Murph and I did them banded this year? Would you have been proud of me if I did them banded, brain? And my brain would be like, no. Like, okay, then we're happy with this time because we're happy
Yeah.
with people up.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. But, and then like you said, it's always like the next thing, because I'm like, oh, well, but next year when I do Murph, and it's like, okay, you just fit, like, it's not even, and you're like, okay, but next year I'm going to do it this way. And I'm going to be faster next year, and it's like,
I would ask your brain.
There's just always something.
Yes. And it's part of us being CrossFitters. We're driven, right? We're achievers. But part of it too is that we have a belief system that there is better than here, right? So like, I'm in a mentoring group, and one of the ladies, she made millions of dollars in her business last year. Okay. And she's like, when I hit $1 million in my business, she's like, I really thought like once I hit 1 million, like it's going to be better, right? Like life's going to be better. It's going to be happier. It's going to be easier. I'm going to be proud of myself. She's like, I hit 1 million. I was literally the same human that day that I was the day before. And it was like this big letdown. So even if you'd have done Murph and done it 2 minutes faster and 100 pull-ups, your brain would still be like, oh, I still feel like the same woman. Maybe next year when I get vested, then I can be proud of myself.
Mm-hmm. It's hard with fitness too. I mean, I know this isn't like a therapy session, but it's hard with fitness because again, you go back to that belief of like, I'm not enough. And then it's like, oh, but if I can do these fitness things or enough fitness things, or then I'll be like enough, or like I'll be better than what I am. And so it's really hard when I know, and I've had to let go of that, like when your identity is so tied up in what you can do as an athlete. Because I told you I took a year off and I was doing mission work around the world. So I was traveling. I could not work out. I worked out when I could, but like everything that I had gained from CrossFit, like I lost all the muscle, all the skill. Like I lost.
I'm going to argue with your brain. Like that's not true. Like you didn't.
But I thought I did.
Zero, where you're like PVC back squat time.
But it feels like, I don't know. And it was just depressing. It was like miserable to feel like I lost this thing that like, I was building. And then, my friends would be like, it's going to come back. Like, it's just a season. It's going to come back. And then, like coming back was really hard at the beginning because it feels like I was starting over, but I really wasn't starting over, but eventually, like, I do really believe now, like I'm to the point where like I'm better than when I left. So I'm like, I'm in a way better place, but it's just hard again to like build your identity on that. And there's always going to be a next challenge or like a better thing, or like, what can I do next? Cause I need to prove that like, that I'm better, that I'm stronger, that I'm faster. Like there's always like, and for me specifically, like I don't know if I really love them or if it's like a trick, but I really love like challenges and like just like things. So I told my husband to like not let me sign up for any more challenges because sometimes it's like a disservice. I'm like doing 1,000 squats in a month or like how many push-ups or I'm like, please, like I am done because it's literally been like this thing after this thing after, and like it's done. Like I cannot be doing any more challenges. Like, and so he was like, okay, but he's like, but I know you're gonna sign up for something like next, like you're always gonna have a challenge that you're doing. And again, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I just think my brain just works in that like I want to achieve. Like there is something I want to achieve. And so I'm just like, okay, I'm going to go do this thing,
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with achieving. I'm an achiever. Like my goal is like, I want to make $10 million in my business. Right. Like and I want it because that's it. I'm not, like I don't feel bad for that.
Yeah.
But it's when we start using achieving to validate our identity, to try to get this enoughness and this worthiness, is where it gets twisted. Because that bar, it constantly moves. It's never enough, right? And so then we're constantly failing, and we never feel good about ourselves. And so I think that's where we have to really dig deep and ask ourselves, it's okay for me to achieve, but what am I trying to achieve? Why am I trying to achieve this? Who am I trying to prove myself to? What am I trying to prove about myself to others? Right?
Yeah.
What am I hoping to get to this? Like, if I reach all these things, what am I hoping? Right? So
Yeah.
I want a Maserati, right? And I was so fixated, like at the beginning of my business on this Maserati, like literally have like 2 clients, right? And I'm making like $300 a month. And all I can focus on is like, I want this Maserati, I want this Maserati. And it was like, why do you want this Maserati? And we want things because of the way it makes us feel. That's really what the human brain's trying to do, is the emotion. We want the emotion, right? I was wanting the Maserati because I wanted to feel the emotion of being proud of myself and others looking at me in envy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, well, I can be proud of myself now when I only make $200 a month as a new coach. Like, emotions can be felt at any time. Like when I have the car doesn't create the emotion. Thoughts create the emotion. So if I think thoughts that make me proud of myself, I can feel proud of myself now without the stupid Maserati.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. We just have to dig deep. Like, why? Who am I trying to prove myself to? Why? Right? Like, what? Like, being very honest.
Yeah, it's just funny because it's true. It's like, well, my husband doesn't care if I can run a half marathon in 2 hours. Like nobody does really.
Right.
Like nobody does. If I did it in 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever, like they don't care.
Right.
And they're not gonna love me more or or less or whatever.
But I would ask
But it does.
like, do you think that people will love me more if I can run this half marathon in 2 hours? Because I would ask your brain that.
I think what you were saying, it's not necessarily like maybe not love, but I think for me, maybe it's like the feeling of like wanting to be admired. Maybe it's admired, maybe it's respected, like you're earning something that maybe you feel like, oh yeah, like people will respect me or like look up to me or think like, or maybe because that's also something that like people have always told me, even like growing up, you're such a role model or like you're such an inspiration. And so it's almost like I'm trying to live up to that. Like, okay, so now I have to like be someone worthy of like people looking up to. So I have to do these things so people can be like, oh, wow, like, you're such an inspiration or like you're so great. Like, like you want that validation, I think.
But is it possible that you are already the role model and the inspiration just by being the woman you are today in this moment?
It's possible.
Your brain's like, it's possible in fairyland, but
yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, and again, everyone has their own weird, maybe quirks or things.
you have a very normal human brain. Like I so many people, and we could same conversations.
But that it's and maybe it's a personality type, but like like wanting to achieve and like just wanting to, I don't know, like I like to do the things and I want to do the things, but again, it can become a disbalance. And I think I like to always check the box, and so like for me, it's like my rings on my Apple Watch, like you got to close all your rings every day. And it just became like an obsession where it was like, there is no sick days. Like you may feel terrible, but you're going to get up and you're going to close all your rings. Like it doesn't matter. And then it got to a point like you're like, but why? Like, why am I doing this? Like, who cares? And then I had to like decide, like, okay, I'm going on my honeymoon. I'm not going to be, at the gym on my honeymoon. Like, I'm just not going to live this way, So it was like sometimes you gotta let go of certain things. I'm like, okay, I've had this going for a long time, but it's just not worth it, to like enjoy my life or like let it take over my life where it does become like an unhealthy thing where I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is, a good thing. So
yeah, I would encourage you to ask your brain, like when you catch yourself doing that, like what emotion are you
Why?
for, brain? Like, who are we trying to earn respect for? Because really, when you can move to a place of like respecting yourself, loving
Yeah.
yourself, you know, and being your best friend, like that stuff kind of starts to dissipate, because that's really what your brain's trying to do, is win your own approval, win your own respect for yourself. And it just right now thinks it has to do it from external things.
Yeah.
And not the internal.
I like that. Just asking your brain. I don't think I've asked, like asking your brain specific questions, just like, yeah, why are we doing this? Like what's going on?
Yeah,
I think that's
curiosity will
good.
always win. Judgment will shut it down. But if we can just be curious, like, oh, I hear you. Like, that's interesting, brain. Like, why? Tell me more about this. What are you looking for? Then you can start seeing the thoughts that are creating this stuff.
I like that.
I will let you go, but I have this one thing. My coach taught me, it was like amazing. So there's 24 hours in a day, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Elon Musk cannot add, because he's rich and famous, he doesn't get 25 hours, right?
Right.
He gets 24. You and I don't get less. We still have 24, right? Like all humans have 24 hours. Do you believe when a baby is born that it's 100% worthy and enough? Like when you hold a baby, do you look at it and think this baby's worthy and enough?
Yeah.
Okay. All humans are born 100% worthy and enough. We cannot add to our worthiness, nor can we take away from our worthiness. It's like time. It's how we spend our worthiness. We can either spend our worthiness and enoughness in a way that makes the world better, or we can piss it away. But you can't add to your worthiness and you can't take away from it. It's just like time.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. So then when you wake up in the morning, like, I'm not worthy enough, like, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Humans are 100%. How am I going to spend this worthiness today?
I like that. That's good.
Well, thank
you. This is great. Yeah. Like I said, if I see you do more and I'm able to get on, I would love to. Like, I think all the topics that you had posted so far, I'm like, yeah, that's super interesting. Like, this is great.
Thanks. Well, I'm doing one every Thursday until November.
Cool.
Zoom link. You can use the Zoom link for all of them. And then
awesome.
I'm super excited because my business partner, Dr. Carmen, she's a naturopathic physician. We're going to get together, and so we're going to start talking about hormones.
And, yes, that's super interesting.
And neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, kiddo. Congratulations on your MIRF. I'm very proud of you.
Thanks. Have fun. Good luck. You'll do great, I'm sure.
Yeah. I'm at the point in my career, I'm like, look, we should always be happy Kim showed up.
Yeah. You're like, I'm here.
Right.
And that's it. We're here we're going to do it. It's fine.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
I hope to meet you in person. I'm sure I will at some point.
How do you say your first name?
Aislinn.
Aislinn. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. We will meet sometime, Aislinn.
For sure. Have a good night.
You girl. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.